Hey, welcome back to this YouTube channel. This is Olubukola Falayajo, and on this channel we do all things faith, lifestyle, and growth, becoming better people. Okay, so from the title of this video, you can already see that we are talking about the true meaning of worship. So now this is majorly for Christians, but if you're not Christian, if you're not religious, you can honestly keep watching just for knowledge sake. I know in the church, when the choir wants to minister to us, they would usually say, let's rise up for praise and worship, and that has really given worship a different definition than it really means. And by the way, I'm wearing this shirt on purpose. It says the place of worship, John 4 verse 20a. Is it 20a? 20 to 24, and it's for my choir in school. Yeah, we made shirts for our concert in the middle of the year or towards the beginning of the year. Anyway, I'm just trying to say that I wore this shirt on purpose. A few months back, while I was still in school, the pastoral team of my church asked me to preach on, I think it was a Friday or a Wednesday. Yeah, they asked me on a Wednesday, and I was asked to talk about something on a Friday evening. And as at the time, the Christian fellowship I was part of had already given this word that some of us would be called to talk to our churches in school, to talk to the people, to the church. And I didn't think my own would come that fast. Literally that week, this was said on a Monday, that week on a Wednesday, I was asked to do this, and this was the topic I spoke about. And recently I was asking God, apart from lifestyle content, what do you want me to do? And I was reminded of this topic that I've already spoken about while I was in school. I'm like, okay, let's do this again. Let me talk about this on here for my audience. So let's go into the topic for today. What is the real meaning of worship? I know most of us, when we hear the word worship, we are thinking singing, because of what the choristers in church will say when they want to go into the praise and worship session. They will say, let's stand up for praise and worship, and that has shaped our definition of the meaning of worship. So when you hear worship, what we are thinking of is singing, but worship in itself is actually not singing. I have my laptop here, so if you see me looking down, it's because I'm looking at my notes. To understand what worship is, it would be good to start from what worship is not. And I've kind of already said it, that first of all, worship is not singing, and second of all, worship is not giving, right? So to explain that worship is not singing, if you look at the Bible, you see that the first time the word worship was used was when Abraham took his son Isaac to be sacrificed. He was obeying God's instruction. God had asked Abraham to sacrifice his son Isaac to him, and he took him up to, I think, a mountain or so to sacrifice Isaac there. And I'll just read out the verse. It is in Genesis chapter 22 verse 5. It says, stay here with the donkey. Abraham told the servants, the boy and I will travel a little farther. We will worship there, and then we will come right back. He said we will worship there. But what was he going to do? He was going to give Isaac up as a sacrifice. But he used the word worship. So that should already be connecting the dots, that worship should have something to do with sacrifice. And then the second thing is that worship is not giving. If you say, oh, you are giving God your tithe, your offering, worship is not the giving itself, right? Worship is, okay, before we go to what worship is, let's know what it is not, right? So worship is not singing, and worship is not giving. But the point is that these two things are avenues to worship. They are like the vehicles used to worship, but in themselves they are not worship. Worship is not singing, and worship is not giving. So what then is worship, right? So this pastor defined worship as this. He says worship is any action by which you demonstrate consecration to God. Any action at all in which you demonstrate consecration to God. So it could be giving, it could be singing, it could be dancing. Any action that you are using to demonstrate consecration to God, that is worship. So when Abraham took Isaac to obey God, to sacrifice him in obedience to God, that sacrifice was the consecration to God. He wanted to obey God. He wanted to honor God's instruction. That's why he said worship. We're going to worship. That was the action was sacrifice. Or yeah, the action was sacrifice. But he used the word worship because that was the demonstration of his consecration to God. The sacrifice was the demonstration of consecration to God, which is the worship. I hope you guys understand what I'm saying. But anyway, so worship is beyond the event. That's what I'm trying to say. It is beyond the action. It is beyond the singing. It is beyond the giving. It is beyond the dancing. It is beyond the event. But in your singing, you can demonstrate consecration to God. In your giving, you can demonstrate consecration to God. So all these other things are the avenues, the means, the channels through which we worship. So moving on, I'm going to read Romans chapter 12 verse 1. Romans 12:1, and it says, I beseech you therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable to God, which is your reasonable service. I think another translation changes reasonable service to worship. Yes, I'm right. The NLT, the New Living Translation, says this is truly the way to worship him. That's the substitute for which is your reasonable service. So same thing here again. We see the word sacrifice being used. Present your bodies a living sacrifice. And let us notice I think it's paradox or oxymoron. It's a paradox, living sacrifice. So for something to be a sacrifice, it means that it is dead. That's what Abraham was trying to do with Isaac, right? In obedience to God, to sacrifice him, to kill him. That's what it was. It was going to kill him if God didn't stop him. So a sacrifice is something that is dead. But then the Bible says, present your bodies a living sacrifice. Something that is dead is supposed to still be alive. That's a paradox. That's just one thing to note. So what this verse is telling us is that we're supposed to, like, our bodies are the sacrifice unto God. So living as in, okay, you are alive, but sacrifice is as in you are dead to everything that is not of God and that is not the will of God or the plan of God for your life. That is being dead, like being dead to your own desires, to your own wills. Doesn't mean that you don't have a mind of your own, that you don't have free will, no. But basically just accepting the will of God the way Abraham did. Because God had already promised him, we are going to have a son, I'm going to make you a father of many nations. And then God is telling him, okay, kill the son. And it's like, what's the correlation? So sacrifice is you being able to give up everything that you have for God. That's sacrifice. Death to yourself, basically, and being ready to give it all up for God. And that is what Paul is saying to the church in Rome, that they should present their bodies a living sacrifice. It's holy, acceptable to God, which is your reasonable service, which is your true worship. This is the way to worship. It's about your whole being. So I wrote here that worship is the testimony of the life of a believer. Your life is supposed to be worship, like all of you. The way this verse says, your body, everything about you, your mind, your soul, your spirit, everything, your body is supposed to be your worship to God. And you know, we said it's not about the event, right? It's beyond the event. Yes, we use events to worship, or to show our worship to God, but it's not about the event. Let me also read another verse to support this point. Revelation chapter 4 verse 11. It says, you are worthy, O Lord, to receive glory and honor and power, for you created all things, and by your will they exist and were created. Created all things. If you believe that God created you, right, you realize from this verse that our purpose is to honor God, to glorify God, because it says that you to receive glory and honor and power, for you created all things, and by your will they exist and were created. So we are made to live for God. We are made to worship God. We are made to do life with God, for God. Everything is supposed to be about God in our lives, because He's one who created us. And this verse has clearly said it, that God was created to receive all glory, all honor, all power. For you created all things, and by your will they exist and were created. So now that we understand what worship truly means, let's go to how to worship. I'm going to read this verse from John chapter 4 from verse 23 to 24, part of the verses that are mentioned. But I'm reading verse 23 and 24. It says, "But the time is coming, indeed, it is here now, when true worshippers will worship the Father in spirit and in truth." The Father is looking for those who will worship him that way. For God is spirit. So those who worship him must worship him in spirit, must worship in spirit and in truth. So it's pretty clear. It's telling you how to worship already. How do you worship? You're supposed to worship in spirit and in truth. Why? It now says because for God is spirit. If you say we are worshiping a spirit being, you believe that God is a spirit. We can't see God with our physical eyes. That means God is spirit, right? And you are giving worship to this God. It simply means that you have to worship him in the way that he needs you to worship him. You're not the one that will determine how to worship him. You have to worship him in the way that he says he should be worshipped. The person who determines how to worship God has to be God, because he's the one that is deserving of the worship, and he's the one that has created this thing called worship that is to be given to him. So he's the one who determines how he should be worshipped, right? Not us. We're not the ones that are to be worshipped. Maybe if somebody's worshiping you, can determine it for them, but we are worshiping God, and he's the one that determines how that is going to happen. It is the spirits that will tell us how to worship the spirits. Do you get? That's why I said you are to worship in spirit and in truth, because you are worshiping a spirit. So your worship has to come from your own spirit to the spirit. It can't just be like a fleshly thing. Like, remember I said it's not about the activity. Worship is beyond the activity, because if it was just about the activity, it would be an earthly thing, it would be an earthly event, but it's not. It's more than that. It's deeper than that. God, the verse says it here, for God is spirit. So those who worship him must worship in spirit and in truth. If you want to worship in spirit, your worship has to come from your spirit. It must be an intentional action. It can't be something that is just around, just casual, up and down, all over the place. It has to come from within, because it is going to an eternal being. Your worship is going to a being that you cannot see, a spirit being, the ultimate spirit being. So it has to come from your own spirit, and it has to be done like truly. It has to be done in truth. You cannot lie about it. If you want to worship God, you must worship God with all of your heart, with all of your being, because he sees everything. He sees everything. So if you are worshiping God with half of yourself, God knows. The person that you're worshiping knows that it's not all of you that is in the worship. It's only part of you. But that's not how to worship God. How to worship is worshiping holistically. All of your being, all of your mind, all of your soul, all of your spirit has to be in the worship as you are doing it. I'm going to also be reading Matthew chapter 15 from verse 8 to 9. It says, "These people honor me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. Their worship is a farce, for they teach man-made ideas as commands from God." So we're just going to take the first part of the verse that says, "These people honor me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me." It's showing you how to worship, that you cannot just be, okay, say you want to use singing as your avenue for worship, right? So you start to sing, "Adonai, we worship you, Son of God, you are so good." And it's only your mouth that means that you're not saying it from your heart, you're not saying it from your mind. The Bible says their hearts are far from me. Your heart has to be in the worship if you want to do it as a true worshiper. If you want to get worship right, it must be from your heart, from your spirit, with all of your heart. It must be from your spirit with all of your heart. You can't do it half. No, that means it's not worship at all. If you want to do half, don't bother doing it. Just leave it for the people that want to do it with all of their hearts. Do you understand? So don't allow your lips to just be moving and saying things when your mind is not in the worship. That is not how to worship. How to worship is worshiping with all of your hearts. Just to emphasize that. We're going to read the last verse, and it is Revelation chapter 4 verse 10. It says, "The 24 elders fall down and worship the one sitting on the throne, the one who lives forever and ever." That's God. "And they lay their crowns before the throne and say, 'You are worthy, O Lord. You are worthy, our Lord and God, to receive glory and honor and power, for you created all things, and by your will they were created and have their being. That's the NIV. I started with NLT, I entered NIV. Pardon me. But yes, this description of how the 24 elders in heaven worship gives us like a blueprint of how we should also worship as children of God on earth. So it says they cast their crown, right? They lay their crowns before the throne. That means these elders have crowns. It's like they're, I don't want to say they're kings, that's not what the Bible said. They're elders, but they remove these crowns and they worship God. So it's like letting go of, like coming down from that high horse, from that place of, this is what I have, I am this and that, like removing it from your head and just coming bare before God. That's like what this verse is trying to tell us. It's like they are taking down everything that has to do with maybe not necessarily pride, but just maybe like achievement, and their like who they are, who they identify as in heaven, their crowns, oh they're so kingly and so priestly and everything. They've removed these things, and it's showing us how we're supposed to come before God in worship. Like remove your mind from all your achievements, all your I am this, I am that, I am what. Just forget about it in those moments. Even if you are a man of God, a minister of the gospel, a this or that, like I honor you for that. God even honors that in your life because he's the one that has given you all of that. But understand that when you're coming before God in worship, all of that shouldn't be a thing at the moment. You should just remove it. The way the elders remove their crown, you self just remove that thing from your mind that is making you feel big before God, that is making you, if it's too heavy on your head, remove it like this. Remove it. Just remove it. Don't try to pretend for God. Like worship is that time to just come open, just to let go. It's sacrifice. It's giving up everything. Just opening your heart to God. I just want to remind us of the definition of worship, that it is any action by which you demonstrate consecration to God. It is any action by which you demonstrate consecration to God. So no matter what you are doing, you are singing, you want to give tithes, you are dancing, you are, I don't know, fellowshipping with the brethren, you are doing this or that, as long as it is showing consecration to God, that is worship. And understand again that worship is actually supposed to be our life, because we are asked to present our bodies a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to God, which is a reasonable service, which is truly the way to worship, as NLT puts it. This is how to worship, presenting all of you, all of your being to God. So yes, we have come to the end of this video. I hope you've learned one or two things. Please, worship is not singing, okay? I understand that the whole church praise and worship team may have given us a different interpretation or meaning to what worship is, but let us not confuse it. Worship is us and the actions we do to demonstrate consecration to God. Alright, so thank you so much for watching. Thank you for everybody that has subscribed. By the way, we are already almost at 100, if not already at 100. The last time I checked, we were at 99 subscribers. Thank you so much, everybody. I can't believe it, like 100 people. Thank you. Please continue to share, like, comment, subscribe. Please let me know your thoughts on these videos. Please, it is important to me, so I will know what I'm doing right and wrong. I beg you, let me know what you think. Let me know what you've learned from this video. Please share it to someone. Share it to your status, share it to your stories, share it to your family group chat, share it to your friend group chat. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't. Alright, and let me know, just so I know who stayed to the end of this video up to this point. I want you to comment this emoji. I'm going to leave it on the screen here. Comment this emoji so I'll know who watched this video to the end and who are my people on this place. But thank you so much once again. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.